The training of Darth Maul as a Rule of Two era Sith Lord was very unconventional when compared to the other Sith of his era. The Rule of Two Sith represented the culmination, when the Sith attempted to rise to power through what was established previously by Lord Bane, a master to covet and hold the power closely, and an apprentice to seek it out, and eventually overthrow the master. With that said, Darth Maul was trained under mysterious circumstances, that being that two Sith Lords already existed in the Star Wars universe when Darth Maul was taken as an apprentice. Those Sith were of course his own master in Sidious, and Sidious his master in Darth Plagueis. It was because of this that there were very strict rules and guidelines revolving around the training of Lord Maul as a third Sith of this era. Guidelines established by Darth Plagueis as essentially protection against Maul being trained as a fully formed Sith Lord that Sidious could use to overthrow him. And guidelines that were even proven completely correct by Darth Maul's usage of a double-bladed lightsaber. A lightsaber that is purely identified as a Sith weapon in Star Wars Legends, created by the fallen Jedi Exar Kun and perfected. So, why did Darth Sidious actually want Darth Maul to use a double-bladed lightsaber? Why did he love this fact, and why did it put Darth Plagueis' mind at ease? What about Darth Maul's lightsaber played perfectly into the full plan of the Sith, without Darth Maul being formally a Rule of Two era Sith Lord at all? And why did Darth Sidious actively encourage it? To begin, we have to look at the Rule of Two era Sith Lords, specifically Sidious and Plagueis, and their views on the lightsaber. Sidious and Plagueis shared a similar view, that being that a lightsaber was very much second to the powers of the Force. The Sith had grown past their usage, as the Sith of this era believed, as again they were scientists, politicians, and very influential figures throughout the galaxy. They obtained power through political prowess and prowess in the Force, not skill with the blade, as they considered this to be a Jedi tradition. This is why, when Sidious trained Darth Maul to be perfect and to focus on lightsaber combat above the gifts of the Force, this is something that Plagueis was hugely supportive of. Beyond this though, this harkens even deeper to the use of Maul's double-bladed lightsaber, as it was Darth Sidious who provided Maul a holocron with detailed information on how to construct the perfect saber staff. As stated, in Legends continuity, the saber staff was an ancient Sith weapon developed by the Sith for the Sith. There was a certain brutality associated with the weapon, and again, this harkened directly into the training of Darth Maul. Darth Maul was trained to be a Sith, but something important that we need to note is he was not trained to be a Rule of Two Sith. Darth Maul was a Sith brute and a Sith assassin, a version of Sith that harkened back to the old masters when there were thousands upon thousands of Sith in the galaxy at a single time, a version that Sidious and Plagueis believed that they had evolved past and yet could still be very advantageous. The Sith of this time needed someone in the form of Maul to do their bidding from the shadows, an individual that could eventually reveal themselves as a Sith Lord without giving away the grand plan of Palpatine and Plagueis. Plagueis also made Darth Sidious swear that the plan of the Sith and their rise to the galaxy would not be shared with Maul. Darth Maul was not trained in the tactics and machinations developed by Sidious and Plagueis, nor did he have access to the teachings of the ancient Sith as the Rule of Two Sith did. Instead, he focused heavily on lightsaber combat, and the double-bladed lightsaber played hugely in his favor. In addition to this, Maul chose to focus his lightsaber form on Form 7, Juyo, the most aggressive of all lightsaber combat forms. This is again a form that he chose after Palpatine explained to Darth Maul how it was hugely advantageous and was deeply indoctrinated into the lore of the Sith, as well as worked massively in his favor. In the Book of the Sith, Darth Sidious writes that Darth Maul was the clear embodiment of the ancient era Sith warrior, and therefore required a weapon that harkened back to this era as well. Sidious stated that the double-bladed lightsaber belonged to the barbarians of the ancient Sith order, which is exactly what he wanted to train in Maul. Sidious was also aware that Darth Maul would need to be in constant conflict with the Jedi as the face of the new Sith order, with Sidious and Plagueis hiding in the background, and he also believed that the double-bladed lightsaber would be hugely advantageous in these scenarios as well. The double-bladed lightsaber, as noted by Darth Bane and later Darth Sidious himself, didn't provide that many advantages in the heat of a lightsaber duel, with Darth Bane noting in his his novel that it was exceptionally hard to master and could even be dangerous for the wielder. Darth Bane's own apprentice and Darth Zana also chose to utilize a dual-bladed lightsaber, but for very different reasons than Darth Maul did. Darth Sidious encouraged Darth Maul to perfect the double-bladed lightsaber because many Jedi, especially of the Clone Wars era, were exceedingly unfamiliar with the weapon, and it has seemingly gone extinct through their order, only utilized by the Jedi Temple Guards for more ceremonial purposes, as it is believed that they were not drilled with it and trained with it to the extent that they were a single-bladed lightsaber or other variations on the weapon. Therefore, when Darth Maul, who had perfected the dual-bladed lightsaber, came into conflict with a Jedi, they were caught off guard by his ferocity and the unfamiliarity with his weapon. The first time that Darth Plagueis saw Darth Maul's dual-bladed lightsaber, he even directly commented to Sidious, stating that he now knew that Darth Maul was not trained as a true Rule of Two era apprentice, but because he wielded the lightsaber of the ancient era and the lightsaber that had once belonged to Exar Kun in fashion, he now realized that Darth Maul was purely trained as a warrior of the Sith and an assassin rather than a true full-blown apprentice. To Plagueis and Darth Sidious, the double-bladed lightsaber represented a lack of grace and a knowledge of the finer things in the Force. It represented many of the pitfalls of the ancient Sith, which is something that Darth Plagueis was hugely proud of Sidious for, in fact, as he implemented within his very apprentice the doctrine of the ancient Sith and the brutality of the double-bladed lightsaber, something that Darth Plagueis believed were the pitfalls of the ancient order and one of the many reasons why the Sith had to evolve, meaning that Darth Maul would never become a true rival to Plagueis and Sidious, just as Darth Plagueis desired, with Maul being more of a means to an end than anything else. In the end though, this all worked perfectly in Sidious's advantage, as he never intended to keep Maul as his final apprentice, especially after Anakin Skywalker emerged, simply as a means to an end to achieve his goals. This is why it's always been so interesting to me in Star Wars lore that Darth Maul puts a huge emphasis on lightsaber combat, so much so that he neglects practicing in the dark side of the Force itself, where on the opposite end, his master couldn't be more different. Sidious only using a lightsaber to display his superiority over the Jedi, believing that the Sith had grown past its practice entirely, and that he now represented a better, more transformed version and era of the Sith. But in the end, it all does make perfect sense. Darth Maul was never meant to ascend to the rank of a fully formed Rule of Two era Sith Lord. Even if there were only ever two Sith Lords in the galaxy at once, Maul was a means to an end, and so was his weapon. But anyway, my friends, what are your thoughts on this? And what are your thoughts on Darth Sidious's, well, complicated viewpoints on Darth Maul's double-bladed lightsaber? What are your thoughts on how it ultimately worked in his favor, but at the same time proved the inferiority of Maul? Also, what do you think of Darth Plagueis and how this was ultimately meant to deceive Darth Plagueis? As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching and continuing to support the channel. May the Force be with you, and I hope that you have a great day.